My very first job was quite comical. I worked for my dad on the weekends on the construction jobs, and I was very young, probably 7 or 8 years old. And what it taught me is how to work. And that was one of the main things he was implied that he wanted me to know for sure, is how to work hard. And my primary job was to carry lumber or dig ditches. And I got very good at both. I hate shovels today, yet when he would have a backhoe sitting there and I'd ask him, well, Dad, why don't you use the backhoe? He said, well, then you wouldn't have a job. So you should just start digging and you've got a job. Well, that was I've used that a lot and I've never forgotten it, because that was a lot of work ethic, and it taught me never be late. If you're on time, you're late. And when you start work, you don't get to the job at that time. You're working at that time. So he taught me a lot of little things. And weather conditions or whatever we would run into, we just worked through them and adjust whatever it took. I know one project we were on, it was in Seattle, and we're working on the side of a side hill building a condominium. And it was the rainy season, of course, and I had to resort to getting hip boots to walk through the mud. And if you don't think that wasn't fun, carrying those heavy form panels around through there. But I learned a lot from that. I progressed on, and I stayed in the trades for a lot of years. I went on to took my apprenticeship as an electrician in residential wiring. Worked in that field for a little while. And then when I got a little bit older, at that time we had a daughter and my son had been born, my dad and I decided we would start our own construction company and be general contractors. We did that for a number of years. And at the time, it'd be about 1979, 1980, the economy in Seattle was such that there wasn't a whole lot of work around, and that's what took me to Alaska. My banker in Seattle relocated and took a job at a local bank in Anchorage. He asked me to come up. I did. I followed him. I worked in the construction field there for a little while. And then they offered me a job at the bank in their construction lending department, as they'd never had a construction person in their construction lending. So I went to work for them. In my first week, I found where they were $5 million over dispersed on loans they had. And they were quite appalled and impressed what I found so quickly. And I stayed there for quite some time. And it was in 1981, the market in Anchorage had slowed down quite a bit. And FDIC was taking over most of the banks, which they did take all of them in the end. But working in a bank in that time frame was a little bit comical, because on Thursday afternoons, everybody would run to the windows to see how many rental cars are in the parking lot. Because if there was a lot of rental cars in the parking lot, that means the FDIC was coming in to take you over, which meant all the employees are locked in the building for the next 3 days so they can photocopy and be ready to open as a new bank on Monday morning. A bank can only be closed for 3 days. So that was an interesting time of my life. And from there, I went in, decided I was living in Wasilla at the time, and I got my real estate license. And I started working with a local broker in Wasilla, and I enjoyed that immensely. And my first client I had just so happened to be a young couple, first-time home buyer, and it was so much fun to work with them. I found a home for them. It was a single story, and up there they had crawl spaces. And the home was really well cared for and had a beautiful wooded setting, which was quite normal in Wasilla area. And the people just really fell in love with the home. We went through the process with the lender. They were easy to work with. We got the home approved. The bank accepted it. We got it closed within 30 days. They moved in, and they were just phenomenally happy, and it was just a real enjoyable experience. And then I had numerous other sales within the area. And at another point, when I was hired by the state of Alaska to do consulting work on their loans that had gone sour on them. And they would fly me around the state looking at different properties to try to decide what can they do with this property to make it marketable and they can liquidate it. And that was a fun job, as it took me all over the state, with the exception of Nome and Kotzebue. But I've been all the way out on the Aleutian chain. I've been up in the north slope of Alaska. I've been most every southeast city. One of my favorites is Sitka. Sitka is just a really gorgeous little town. It's right on the western edge of Alaska. And when you look out of the harbor, if you could see the land, it would be Japan. So it was just unobstructed across the Pacific. Just a beautiful place to be. Very religious and nice buildings in town. And a cute little story from that one is there's a hierarchy of half a dozen people that pretty much ran the town, but they were practical jokers with each other. And there was a mountain about 5 miles away from Sitka, Mount Etchkum. And one of the gentlemen had owned a helicopter business, and he flew a helicopter with a whole string of worn-out tires in the darkened night over and placed him in the center of Mount Etchkum, right in the, so that his idea was he's going to light him off and fake like it was having a volcano. Well, it all went really well. The Coast Guard was called out of Juneau. They shipped over a cutter to investigate because Mount Etchkum had never had a volcano in its entire life. And they finally figured out what happened. And to say the least, they had a little explaining to do, but being that they were all practical jokers and they knew everybody in town, including the judge, it worked out pretty well for them. And that's one of the cutest towns I worked in. Then I followed myself all the way to the North Slope in the oil field, and I spent 18 years up there. And that was a really, really interesting experience. I'd heard so many stories about it, and you talk about being on the ice roads. We worked right on the Arctic Ocean. Our camp was 3 miles off. And in the wintertime, from January through March, we would have what they called ice road season. And ice road season is nothing more than what you see on TV of the ice road truckers. And it's a wide freeway that's right on the ice. They grade it down, make it smooth, and then they run these 1,000,000-pound drill rigs over the top of it so they can move them because the land is tundra, so they can't move them in the summer. They have to wait till winter unless they're on a gravel road. So the easiest way to do it is do it on the ice. And it was really, really interesting to watch these huge, huge pieces of machinery go across the ice and watch it. You see the ice dip just a little tiny bit as they'd go over from the weight. But they had to go ever so slow because they couldn't create a wave action that would be subsurface and come up and break the ice away from the shore, or they wouldn't get off the ice. So that was kind of an interesting thing to watch, and it was really different to drive on it. The truck I had weighed 250,000 pounds, and I was hauling 150 barrels worth of fluid, and I'm traveling down this road about 40, 50 miles an hour, and I'm sticking to it just like you would on asphalt. It's just too cold. And probably the coldest I've ever worked in up there was up real close to 60 below. And on one occasion, I had to go on top of the truck just to check something real quick. And I mean, I was up and down that ladder like in no time at all. And when I got back down, my cheek felt like a T-bone steak. It was just frozen. But it was a very interesting experience. I learned so much about the oil industry, the natural gas industry, and it was really a pleasure to have that experience. And from there, I retired for medical reasons, and it took me about 4 or 5 years to rehabilitate myself. And when I got done with that, I'm at about 66, getting ready to go on Social Security. But I had found that when I semi-retired, this was not what I wanted, and I vowed that I would never ever retire again, because you need something to keep your mind and keep your body active, just to maintain in this world. And it'd be no fun to sit home. So I went back into the real estate, and it's a field I really enjoy. I can do it very efficiently now. I have a lot of knowledge in the business. I love working with, like I said before, the younger clients, and I also really enjoy working with the senior clients and everybody in between. I do really well with the seniors because they have a little bit of a problem. They've had a home, they live in a senior community or not. They've had this home for, 20, 25 years. It's full of the kids' stuff. It's full of their mementos. And they want to downsize. It's too big. A lot of them are 2-story homes, and they want a 1-story. So it's fun to work with them. And I go in and talk to them, and I try to take and lead them by the hand, making some decisions. Every decision a client makes is their decision, and it's my job to give them as many alternative options as possible. So in our initial visit, I'm really looking to find out what they're trying to accomplish by downsizing, moving, whatever the case may be. Sometimes it's to move closer to the grandkids. Sometimes it's just get out of the big house and cut down to a smaller one so they can do some traveling or have a little more money. So this is all good information to know. And then you have to take a look of, they talk about all this stuff. They really get hung up on how much things they've acquired over the years and what they're going to do with them. And I've done in several specific occasions when their furniture is set up so well in their house, I'll have them remove whatever they want to take with them and leave the furniture in the house and use that as staging the house. And it works out famously. When the house is sold, we'll have an estate sale. Most of the stuff will be sold. They'll make a few extra dollars. Whatever's left over, it gets hauled off. But the main thing is they're done. They've already been moved out. So when they go to come out of the closing, they're going to get their check in the next day or so. They're done. There is no more stress. And I try to make it as stress-free as possible, recognizing you can't make it 100% stress-free. But I want them to understand that I take every situation and I want them to put it on my shoulders. Let me deal with it. I do this for a living. I know how to do it. And there's not many situations that I haven't run into. And I explain to them all the time. And from the get-go, we have a list of, I call critical dates. On this date, we have to have this done. This date, we have to have this done. And it runs through the entire process, realizing we can adjust those dates if we need to. And sometimes you do. It depends on what happens. It's real estate. You've got to be flexible. So I've had very good success with the seniors. And the first-time home buyers, I've had very good success with them because I really care. I remember being a young person buying my first home. I wish I had somebody that could have guided me through the process like I do with my clients. But these younger people, especially today, it's a whole different generation than when I grew up. But I don't want them to overbuy. I don't want them to underbuy. I want them to buy the home that they need now, because they're not going to own that home forever. But they will buy, if they buy the right one, hopefully it'll appreciate, and you'll make a few dollars and move on, put that money into the next one, and so forth. Now, I take them to the lender, and this is where it gets a little tough sometimes, because they don't have a lot of financial wherewithal at their young age. But I've had my lenders, one in particular, and I call her the mom lender, and I'll tell her, okay, time to put on your mom hat. We've got a young couple here we need to talk to and explain to them, and she will really get down and explain just how it works. In fact, that I've had one client that she even had the one person call her up in the morning to stop at 7-Eleven to buy a cup of coffee because they're running real short at closing, and they wanted to have enough money to close. But she was so nice about it, and they appreciated it, and they still talk today, and this is a number of years ago. So it's really an interesting business. I enjoy it. I look forward to doing it, and like I said before, I'll never retire. I'm never going to do that again. It's just no fun, but this is, and I like keeping my mind sharp.